Hello there and welcome back to our channel. Here at Growing Greener Communities, we share guidance and information on ways that we can protect our local waterways and make our communities greener, healthier, and friendlier towards the environment. Today we're traveling to Smedley Park in Delaware County, Pennsylvania, to attend a live staking workshop with Stephen Lockard and the tree tenders of Upper Darby. Not sure what live staking is? You're about to find out. Live staking is a method of repairing streams that involves planting live cuttings of native trees and shrubs into stream banks for the purpose of stabilizing soil and preventing erosion. You might be thinking, why would a stream need to be repaired? Through development and human activities, our state's native streamside vegetation like trees, shrubs, and herbaceous plants have been removed, replaced, or outcompeted by invasive plants in many places. This leaves many stream banks without much vegetation, meaning that there aren't many roots to hold the soil in place. This means that during large storm events, intense stream flow can cause our stream banks to erode away. This not only causes pollution in our creeks and streams, but also increases the threat of flash floods downstream. Let's hear what Stephen has to say about live staking.
So the primary reason for live staking is to stabilize stream banks. So here we are along the Crum Creek, but we're at a junction where a tributary is coming into the Crum Creek from this side. When water rushes down here during a storm, one of the pollutants that it drops right here is sediment. That's why this beach is here. A lot of this loose material came from upstream, pushed across here, and got dropped here. You want to try and stabilize the stream bank whenever you can.
The first step to creating a live stake installation is acquiring your stakes. There are multiple ways you can acquire stakes, which include harvesting them yourself or purchasing them from a nursery. In this video, we're going to demonstrate how to harvest live stakes yourself. Live stakes should be harvested and installed when they are dormant and their buds have not yet broken. In Pennsylvania, plant dormancy generally occurs between late November and mid-March. Our live staking initiatives have generally been conducted in the late winter months of February and March when the ground has mostly thawed out. We have found great success with live staking during this time period. Before harvesting live stakes, always obtain landowner permission. There are multiple species that are used for live staking, including red osier dogwood, silky dogwood, elderberry, pussy willow, black willow, ninebark, and more. In order to harvest your live stakes, you're going to need one pair of loppers, one pair of bypass pruners, and a bucket filled with a few inches of water.
If you guys come over a little closer, you can take a look here. So these are the osier dogwood. In general, they say you could take up to 40% of an osier dogwood every year and you won't kill the plant. I don't know that that's perfectly true, but I've seen it be fairly good. Both Michelle and Jamie Anderson, who have been out doing this kind of thing, have said that we've taken almost half of their plant each year and the plant still lives. So the red osier dogwood is very good for this. You can take a look here. This particular one on my left here, right in front of me, has 1, 2, 3, 4 different stems that were taken. And there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 still left. So they took 4 out of 14, maybe 30%, something like that. The elderberry also is very good for this, and you can harvest, let's say, 20 to 30% of the stakes from elderberry and not have a problem. Some of these things, like buttonbush, and I'll try to show you some buttonbush down here, they're also really great for live staking, but you'll kill the plant if you take as much as 1/5 of it. Don't take any more than 10% of it. You know, it's not one of those plants that can handle it. Every species has its own abilities. You need to take that in consideration when you're doing this. When we first take the stakes off of the shrub or tree, what we want to do is use a heavy tool. The longer the handle, the more mechanical advantage you have. So these are 22 inch, so they're really pretty good for that. And what you'll do is you can cut them off flat from the shrub, but shortly after you take them off, what you want to do is you want to make sure that you cut the bottom off at an angle, let's say a 45-degree angle. And that's for 2 reasons. One, when it's cut off at an angle, it makes it easier to push it into a hole. And the second thing is it allows you to, it reminds you of what the bottom is and what's the top. The top is cut off flat, the bottom's cut off an angle, and the part that's cut off an angle, you want to stick it into a bucket with some water. Now, many times, there will be lots of small twigs along the edge. Take your pruners and cut those off. The idea is to retard hormones from going to try to work at those spots. Push those hormones, they're called auxins, down to where the roots will be. And hopefully roots will begin to grow underground. The branches can grow later. You've got to get those roots to grow.
Once your live stakes are harvested and in a bucket of water, you can either install them right away or store them for later use. Live stakes should be stored in a cool, dark place to prevent them from budding. They can be stored from a few days to a few weeks, but the sooner you get them into the ground, the better their chance of survival.
What you can also notice is that when we do this, there are what are sometimes called nodes. And you'll find these places along the stem. There's a node right here, this place where it's starting to bud. There's another one here, another one here, another one here. When we go to put these in the ground, we want to make sure that we get at least 2, maybe 3 of these nodes in the ground. In the long run, you want to get 2/3 of this in the ground if you can. It's not always easy to do, but we try our best to do that. It does. In fact, generally, there's a company that does this for a living, so to speak. They say that the best results they get are when the stems or stakes are 1/2 inch to 1.5 inches thick. Apparently, the great mass in a stake, when it's that big, has a lot more auxins, and it can push them in the right direction. That's where they find the greatest success. So sometimes the ground is very hard. And when the ground's hard, you can't just push a stake into the ground. So what we do is we use a tool to make a pilot hole. With the thicker stakes, one thicker than this, what I would do is I take one of these concrete spikes, I'd set it up perpendicular to the ground, or orthogonal as they say, and hit that into the ground, maybe a foot or 18 inches deep. Pull the spike out, and then push the stake into the ground. Again, you want that stake to have several nodes into the ground so those roots can take. You want to drive this down enough so that when you go to push something like this in, you can get it 2/3 of the way up. Now, many times, the size of the stake that you're using is much thinner. And when it's thinner, use a different material to make your pilot hole. So this is 1/2 inch rebar, which is often used for construction, reinforcing concrete. But there are many occasions where you have something that's really thin. When it's really thin, if you use one of the larger pieces, this stake is not going to touch soil. So what you want is something very thin, something like 3/8 inch rebar. In that case, you drive it into the ground and then push this in afterwards. I try to do this, I guess the term in geometry is orthogonal. You want it to be perpendicular, but you want it to be perpendicular in several different directions. So if the stream bank is tilted, you want this to go up and down like that, so it's perpendicular to the soil. But you might also want it to be perpendicular going this way as well, right? But the last thing to think about is it getting lots of water pushing against it? So if the Crumb Creek is pushing this way with a lot of water, this would resist it. I don't think it's going to be able to handle resisting against the water in the Crumb Creek. So the best thing to do, tilt it a little bit away from the stream flow. That way, you won't have as much damage to it from the water. This is what, 4 to 6 inches above the water table. You could very easily put something in the ground here. But that's not the kind of place where you really want to stabilize the stream bank. If you turn around, what you'll see is this stream bank is eroded back here. Now, it's very difficult to try to put something, let's say 3 feet up the bank. In order to put something 3 feet up the bank, the kind of stake that you needs to be almost 4 feet long. And you'll have to hammer down maybe 2 feet to be able to push this down to where it gets the groundwater. Because you can see at this stage, I'm probably 2 feet above where the groundwater would be. Now, that's one reason why you can buy stakes that are 4 feet long. Ideally, when you're doing the staking, you do it in an M or W pattern or a zigzag or seesaw fashion. So you plant one here, then maybe one back a little 2 feet, and then one 2 feet up, go like that. And the idea is that the roots will grow together and they'll be able to hold the bank a little better that way. Just doing them in a straight row isn't as efficient as what you want to stabilize the stream bank. In general, they say 50% of the stakes are viable 2 years after you put them in the ground. Okay? But it depends on the species. Some of the species are only 30%. Arrowwood is not really as good for this. And some of the trees are not as good. So you might get less with that. But some of the others, like the red osier dogwood and the silky dogwood, up to 70% of them usually will be viable. Okay, so that might have some impact on what you're doing. If you want to order some of these things, you can. If you want to just buy some red osier dogwoods, and then 3 years from now, after you put them in the ground, harvest your own to take out, do something, a late winter activity or spring activity, you can do that.
Thanks so much for tagging along with us today. If you're interested in learning more about live staking, be sure to check out the description below for links to educational resources. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the stream.